So for obvious reasons, I was suggested to do a Santa themed video this week, which is an amazing idea. What's also amazing is how much of a weirdo I am. So it won't be just Santa, I'll be doing MANTA CLAUS, with a lot of eyes. Now for those unaware, which my research shows will be the universal majority, MANTA CLAUS is what I've concocted to be the bringer of joy to our alien counterparts all across the multiverses, and for someone who, quote-unquote, sees you when you're sleeping, which... yeah, I'm not touching that. Anyway, I decided Manta should have several eyes to test the very fabric of my debilitating mental health.
Yeah, it.
For Jolly Saint, whatever, I decided to do 20 eyes of varied sizes, as small as 2mm and up to my largest size of 20mm glass cabochons. For every eye, I start with my pupils and then scratch out the irises of the larger eyes. My practice with doing this is to take a larger wood carving tool to make larger lines, and for definition in smaller lines, using a Chico stick drag in the opposite direction. I allow this layer to dry completely, and then I'll add subsequent layers and colors of my choosing. Most nail polishes, they do dry pretty quickly, however for some temperamental ones, I'll use a nail dryer to speed up the process. Manta's going to have one large reddish eye, so once I have the second iris layer in, and it's dry, I'll use a pinkish polish as the final layer. And you may be wondering why these colors specifically. Well, when you turn the lights off, and turn a black light on, it answers itself. All my eyes now have pupils, meaning I get to formulate the plan in real time on colors. I decided all my black pupils will be orange, the insane asylum reds will be white, and the soul snatching whites will be paranormal black. Now normally I'm as calm and collected as anyone dumb enough to do this many eyes at once. However, after the last few weeks with the Steelers, patients don't live here right now. So to fast forward several hours of real-time nausea and anxiety, I'm going to slam my hand on my desk and make these paint themselves.
Okay.
I leave the eyes to dry an extra 1 to 2 hours to focus primarily on Manta's head. For reference, I'm actually getting tiresome of saying Manta, so since the name is already in the thumbnail, the remainder of the video I'm just going to call him Manny. I knew this was going to be a head that would have to be larger and oblong to fit this many eyes in, so I start with a potato-sized ball of foil, shape it to my desire, then create some holes for future wiring to go in, and that will serve as the tentacles to hold the eyes in. His eye tentacles will be of aluminum wire wrapped in foil and then super sculpty ultralight. Then once the ultralight is on and smooth, let's push in all of these peepers. Manny's eyes are now all secured. I now shape out a small standard mouth for him to do things commonly associated with mouths, then bake him in the oven for 20 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit, and then once his head is cooled down, he's ready for a body. His body will also, ironically enough, be shaped out of aluminum wire, which I will adjust and contort for a standard jolly frame. I secure his waist with thin floral wire, and then attach his future broad shoulders and arms in a similar fashion. We then will apply copious amounts of foil to shape out his chest and arms, and also his titan-sized calves. Because as you'll see, Manny not only delivers gifts, he is a gift. Manny's entire body now gets ultralighted, and his final ginormous eye gets pushed right into his chest. Because his head is too heavy for standard wiring, I have to get creative to thicken it, which I do so in the following manner. I provide the evolved wire some support with translucent Sculpey Primo pushed in the hole, then I'll create a thick neck of foil, followed by a decent amount of oven-baked clay adhesive inside his cranial cavity, finally attaching it to his brainstem, before realizing his lower extremities couldn't support the weight, so I focused on bulking them out with foil and applying Super Sculpey Original to his calves and legs. I'm also taking the time to create his feature hands, which will be small lumps of clay with wiring pushed in, and then each finger will then be wrapped with foil. For most of my creature builds, I always like to have them as symmetrical as possible, even if certain aspects are asymmetrical. Smaller hands on this guy isn't gonna work today, so we have to go big. Once his hands are framed accordingly, I ventured to start making his feet. Now admittedly, at the end of this build, his feet are somewhat non-existent, but I wanted to keep the footage in of me making them, as feet in general are my personal kryptonite and something I'm constantly working on. I wanted to bring this up because if there's an area of concern with your art, whether it's sculpting, drawing, painting, whatever it may be, don't ignore your pitfalls, make ground so you can one day leapfrog them. Little by little, you're going to get better, you're going to get stronger. And it's okay to always have something to work on. I'm in the same exact boat as you. Don't worry, we all got this. Manny's body is all clayed up, meaning we can start working on his head and the various droops, brown lines, and wrinkles across his two main eyes, aka my self-portrait. I think that's the longest I went without talking this year, and it makes me really uncomfortable. So I'm going to fix this by verbally advising how I'm now shaping out what will be Manny's feature outfit, and just for a peek behind the curtain, I was within a few hairs of giving him a festive romper. But then I remembered it's 2023, and there's some things that we fought through and experienced that we don't need to relive, and we are better knowing that we learned from our mistakes. After applying some final details on his suit, it's time to shift the focus on his future claws, teeth, and icicle horns. The horns and teeth will be made out of Sculpey Primo and translucent, and while they're baking, I'm using Sculpey Primo and wasabi to wrap around his chest eye and make some vein-like stitching. Then I'm going to use the same color to shape out what will be his long claws. After the claws are shaped, I used the final two small painted eyes, and for reasons only scientists can debate and analyze, I pushed the eyes on each hand to sprawl out the middle two fingers. Before someone says it, I am fully aware, and so is my therapist. Also super late in the video, but for those who suffer from trypophobia, I am very sorry for all of the eyes today. Trust me, this won't happen for a while. Moving on though, we apply the same color in his mouth, shape it out accordingly, and then use the summer teeth method for his fangs. I then punch out several holes across his chest for future icicle talons before pushing them in, and then I'll rinse and repeat the same exact steps for the top two eye tentacle strands. Once all fangs and shards are in place, I use one of my custom sculpting tools to add some much needed detail to his non-romper suit and also across his head and face before adding the final details to his claws and his palms. We then bake him at 275 degrees for roughly 45 minutes, do a mental cartwheel since it survived, since I can't do a physical one, and then once he's fully cooled down, it is time that we actually give him his much needed hat. Still concerned with him becoming top heavy even after baking, I'm going to make his hat out of aluminum foil and wrapped in a layer of moldable foam clay. The foam clay, which is similar to paper clay and ultralight, will dry lightweight, and even with the foil underneath, I won't have any concerns with it losing its shape or even cracking. Foam clay can also be sanded down if you needed to, and it also can be painted with a myriad of acrylic paints and inks, and if needed you can also use spray paint as long as you have it primed appropriately with a standard primer. With this hat on, it's time for my favorite part. Now let's make him a base. I take a scrap sheet of 6mm foam and measure out the base just to ensure it fits. Then I'm going to glue the block onto the foam. This glue and foam are safe to use together, but some foams and glues aren't, so you always want to be cautious of this beforehand. Once glued, I will measure out various balls of foil, glue those to the foam block, and then I'm going to mix up a batch of colored plaster of Paris. For today's build, I'll be using 2 different shades of yellow, mint green, light blue, glossy Mod Podge, and for a galactic holiday theme, some green and glow-in-the-dark powders with some water. Once this is all blended, it's going to be the most absurdly ugly raw baby food color I've ever seen, but because I don't have time to make another batch, I'm just going to lather this all over the base and leave about a ½ inch from the edge to prevent any form of drippage. Some leftover plastic chunks are going to get sprinkled all across the base cake and then also in different areas. Then I'm going to glue in some rocks for some added dimension. I'll then push Manny into the still malleable plastic just to measure out his final standing place. And then while the base dries, I'm going to actually spread on some embossing powder and then make him some cufflinks with this fleece. I'm going to cut out some strips and wrap them around his cankles, his forearms, and then also where his choker would be if he was into that sort of thing. And then once all of this is done, it's time to put on the glove and it's time to paint. Today's paint job begins with painting a peat green color all across Manny's head, hands, and also his feet, even though they'll mostly be forgotten once they're set in with the base. Once there's adequate coverage across all of the above, I'm going to paint his suit and his hat with a scarlet red. I just want to take a moment to mention that the paints I've been using primarily this year have been Daler-Rowney acrylic inks, which I've become a very strong supporter of. I absolutely love the coverage I receive from these, and they spray supremely evenly through my airbrush without any form of clogging. And no, I'm not sponsored by them in any capacity, but for any fellow airbrush enthusiast or an artist, if you're in the market for some new inks, I would highly recommend these. With his hat and body painted, I make a darker red mix of scarlet and dabs of black to spray across the edge of the base, and then spray small amounts on the interior of his suit to create shadows, and also on other areas to make it appear as faded patches of fabric. I then go back over the sides and back of his hat with titanium white, use a Chica stick to repaint parts of his head from the overspray, and then once I'm fully satisfied with the paint job, I take some satisfaction and make dabs of airbrush cleaner on a Kleenex and wipe out and scrape paint off of all 20 of his eyes. Then I call an audible and decide supremely late Manny needed a beard, and a beard he shall have. I got this craft fluff on clearance from my local Michaels and felt it would be perfect for my space gifting variant. I apply some fabric tack to his chin and then cut out even strands of fluff and push them on evenly onto his face. Once the glue dried, I decided I didn't want any beef with Serge, Braun Strowman, or any other long-bearded individual, so I did trim the hair down and I sprayed some titanium white on it to lighten it. I may have also been jealous of a sculpture having better facial hair than me, and once you become jealous of inanimate objects having better genetics than you, there is absolutely no coming back from that. I'm using liquid Sculpting Garnet Metallic today for the first time. Once I follow the instructions on the packaging, I'm scooping it into the bottom of his mouth to let it pull and appear as space drool. Then I'm reattaching the nozzle to squirt it evenly down his beard. Now, liquid clays are to be cured in the oven like polymer clays. However, I'm not risking my health putting a piece in the oven with several layers of glue, ink, and foam making fumes. So to offset this, I'm using my heat gun for about 15 minutes and it cured just fine. The final steps today is I'm going to be adding snow to the base, his suit, and his hat. For various purposes, I'm going to take foam glue and drizzle it all across the sides of the bottom of the base, then scoop larger amounts of white sparkly sand on top. And then I'm going to follow this with glossy Mod Podge in other areas, primarily on his clothes and hat. Once the Mod Podge dries, it's going to go from white to clear and give the realistic perception of melted snow. With this step fully complete, I'm actually going to give it its moment in the spotlight and also give you all some much needed holiday inspired shots of smaction. I just wanted to take a moment here at the end of the video just to thank everyone for their support. I know I had very much a very outlier year this year as far as my content, but I do want to thank you all again for the support. It means so much to me. I also hope you did enjoy today's video, and I hope it brought you some great holiday cheer, again with my somewhat macabre style. If you did enjoy today's video, go ahead and please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, it really helps, and also set the bell notification for future updates. More importantly than everything, I know this time of the year could be hard for a lot of people, so I do hope you are having a wonderful holiday season, and whatever you're going through, please believe in yourself. And if you're not ready to, I'll believe in you until you are. Until next time, stay well, stay blessed, and we'll see you next time, everybody.